If you're a parent, and especially if you're a mom, there is a very good chance that you're carrying a lot of things: the grocery list, the gift list, the emotional temperature of the whole house, the school calendar, the logistics of every appointment, the worry about money, safety, screens, school, friendships, the reminders, the follow-up, the what's for dinner. This is the mental, emotional, and logistical load, the invisible labor that doesn't show up on a to-do list, but that you feel in your body and your nervous system every day. And the load isn't just the tasks, it's also the beliefs underneath the tasks. And these beliefs are so common, and they often come from love, but they also quietly teach your brain, my needs are extra, my dreams are extra, my energy is disposable. And the truth is, these are beliefs, they are not facts. If we treat them as the absolute truth, we'll keep carrying a load that was never meant to be carried by one human being. Laying down the load doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you gently start shifting from, I have to carry everything alone, to I'm allowed to share the load. I'm allowed to matter too here. Welcome to Parents and Teens Rising, the podcast that bridges the gap between parents and teens and helps families thrive. I'm Jasmine Chandler, teen and parent coach, wilderness rites of passage guide, and founder of Guided Passages. After over 16 years of working with young people, I know how challenging and rewarding these years can be. Each week, we'll explore real conversations, practical tools, and fresh perspectives to help you connect with your teen, support their confidence, and navigate the ups and downs. Let's rise together. Hey everyone, welcome back into the podcast. We are officially in week 3 of my 4-episode mini-series, The Up-Level Reset, 4 simple shifts for a stronger 2026, created to help me and you get our New Year's off to an amazing start. So over these last 4 Wednesdays of 2025, I've been bringing you one powerful reset each week to help you let go of what's no longer serving you and step into 2026 with more confidence, inspiration, and clarity. In week 1, we kick things off with the focus shift because where you place your focus and attention shapes your emotional world, your relationships, and the story you live inside. In week 2, we went a level deeper and talked about upgrading your beliefs and inner story. So noticing the thoughts that are limiting you, questioning them, and choosing new stories that expand what's possible. And now in this episode, which is dropping on Christmas Eve in the United States, we're moving into week 3, which is all about courage and trust, listening to your inner voice, laying down what you were never meant to carry alone, and taking aligned action toward the life that's calling you. Because once you've started to shift what you focus on and what you believe, the next step really is living differently, even in small ways. And that always asks something of us. It asks for a little more courage, a little more trust, and maybe even a willingness to not always choose our comfort zone by default. And just so you know what's still coming next week, in week 4, we're going to close out this series with a New Year's identity reset. What you're ready to release from 2025, what you're calling in for 2026, and why New Year's resolutions usually don't work, plus how you can do it differently this time from the inside out. But today, I want to zoom in on 4 pieces. So first of all, I want to talk about listening to our internal voice versus all of the noise, and how intuition ties into focus and beliefs. And then we're going to move into laying down some of the internal and logistical load and the beliefs that sit underneath that. And then we'll talk about practicing courage over comfort to start moving towards what we really want in our lives. And finally, we'll talk about taking aligned action while partnering with the universe or life or God or whatever resonates with you as we step into 2026. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is listening to your internal voice versus all the noise. So I want to start by naming something you might be feeling especially strong at the moment as we are right in the holiday season. So there is so much noise. And I'm not just talking about the noise from our teenagers screaming at each other from the other room or blasting their music, but more like all the things we're carrying that start to feel like overwhelm and stress. So this might look like expectations, to-do lists, everyone's needs and emotions, cultural pressure to make the holidays so extra super magical, the news, social media, comparison, the logistics of food, travel, gifts, schedules, right? So many things. It is so loud. And in the middle of all that, there's usually a much quieter internal voice that's really so easy to miss. And that quieter voice might be saying something like, "You're exhausted. You need to rest." Or, "This tradition doesn't fit anymore." Or, "You're allowed to want more joy for yourself too." Or it might sound like, "It's time to take that next step you keep thinking about." Or it might say something like, "Say no to this so you can say yes to what actually matters." So that quiet voice is what I would call intuition or inner wisdom or your deeper knowing. And here's how it ties directly to the first 2 weeks of the series. So in week 1, we practiced shifting our focus so that we're not just noticing all the problems and everything that's wrong. And in week 2, we really started questioning our beliefs, our old story beliefs, things like "I'm stuck," or "This is just how it is," or "I don't get to have what I want." And that really helped us to loosen the grip on that inner critic and open the door to some new possibilities. And together, those two shifts really make it so much easier to actually hear our intuition. Because when your mind is completely filled with things like "everything is a disaster," or "I'm not capable of anything different," there's not a lot of room for a gentle, loving inner voice that says, "Hey, there's another way," right? And so this is something that I have, gone through many different cycles of in my own life, of kind of coming up to this edge where I know that the old way of living is no longer working for me, right? And I come to this point where I'm like, I cannot do this another moment, right? I'm just doing this thing over and over and over, day after day, that I call soul sucking, right? So this for me has often come in the form of jobs, right? So it might be a job that I'm in that just feels like it is sucking my soul, right? It doesn't feel aligned with where I want to be in my life in this moment. And I have to really start to question some of those beliefs that say, if I leave this job, I don't know what's coming next, or I might not have a safety net, or something better might not be there for me, right? That I'm going to regret doing this thing because right now I have security, right? And so I've, held myself in traps for a long time of like staying in positions or things like that because of the paycheck, because I need to have this thing taken care of and to feel stable and have security in my life. But what it does is it creates this internal turmoil. And for me, I'm not just the type of person that can just have that internal turmoil and just keep carrying on and just keep grinding through it. I always have this like inner voice that's talking to me going, there's something more, there's something better, there's something more aligned. And every time that I have listened to that voice and made that hard choice to leave a position or a relationship or whatever it is, it has always opened the door for something that I couldn't have quite imagined. It's opened the door to something better, right? If I had stayed in that position or whatever it might be, I would have stayed unhappy and I would have had all this internal conflict all the time and, been really upset about going to work or, coming home feeling drained and all of that. But when I drew the line in my life, many, many times, I can point back to so many different times in my life where I was able to recognize that this is no longer serving me and made that choice to leave a position or leave a relationship or move somewhere else. And whenever I've done that, whenever I've listened to my inner voice, it has always opened the door to what was meant for me, to the next best thing, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. When we allow ourselves a little bit of spaciousness to quiet the noise and really ask ourselves the deeper questions and really listen to our intuition and our inner wisdom about what is the next move, that will give us so much information. And it's so important to listen to that, right? Because we are here for a reason on this planet. We all came here for something, right? We had some type of a calling, why we came into our human bodies, into the particular family that we came into the particular set of circumstances that we arrived at. It's all so that we can do this thing that we came here to do. And when we're not doing the thing that we came here to do, we have internal conflict. Doesn't feel good, right? And when we're just, letting all the expectations of our family and society and all of the different things run the show, and we quiet that voice down so that we can just keep doing that, what happens is we are no longer in integrity with ourselves, and we have a lot of, symptoms that start to appear. Sometimes that might be things like overwhelm or stress or anger or frustration. Sometimes it might be actual sickness in our bodies. So there's something to this idea of, really starting to tune in. Like, what is that quiet voice asking of me? Have I been allowing myself to listen? Have I been allowing myself to, walk through the doorway of fear sometimes to that next unknown place, right? So that's what I'm talking about here today. These are big, big life things, right? That ultimately can impact so much. But it doesn't even actually have to be this huge life altering decision that you're making, right? It can really be about little everyday things too. Okay. So as you move through this week, especially around Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, if your family celebrates these holidays and all the days that follow, I want you to just start noticing something. How much of what you're hearing inside is all of the noise that leads to feelings of stress or worry or obligation or self criticism? And how much are you really able to hear your internal voice and your own inner wisdom, which has been desperately trying to get a word in? So that quiet intuition often doesn't shout, it doesn't bully, it just nudges, it just quietly whispers, but it repeats the same idea over and over in a calm way, hoping that we might pause for a moment and tune in. And here is the key. The inner work that we're doing around focus and beliefs isn't just so you can feel better, it's so you can really start to hear your own inner wisdom and respond. All right, so let's move into talking about the load that we've been carrying for a minute. Because if you're a parent, and especially if you're a mom, there's a very good chance that you're carrying a lot of things: the grocery list, the gift list, the emotional temperature of the whole house, the school calendar, the logistics of every appointment, the worry about money, safety, screens, school, friendships, the reminders, the follow up, the what's for dinner. Right? This is the mental, emotional, and logistical load, the invisible labor that doesn't show up on a to do list, but that you feel in your body and your nervous system every day. And the load isn't just the tasks, it's also the beliefs underneath the tasks. If I don't keep track of everything, it's going to fall apart. It's my job to keep everyone happy. I'm not allowed to rest until everyone is okay. A good parent sacrifices their needs, right? Doesn't really matter what I want. I'm here to support everyone else. And these beliefs are so common and they often come from love, but they also quietly teach your brain my needs are extra, my dreams are extra, my energy is disposable. And the truth is, going back to last week, these are beliefs, they are not facts. If we treat them as the absolute truth, we'll keep carrying a load that was never meant to be carried by one human being. Laying down the load doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you stop showing up for your people. It means you gently start shifting from, I have to carry everything alone, to I'm allowed to share the load. I'm allowed to matter too here. So sometimes that might look like delegating a task and letting it be done imperfectly. It might be asking your partner or your co parent to take over certain logistics completely. It might be saying no to an event or a tradition that drains you. Or it might be simplifying what holiday magic means in your house. Or even just admitting to yourself that I'm at capacity and letting that be valid. So, one example that I can think of where I realized that the load was just becoming too heavy, this was actually years and years ago. My kids were still pretty young. I want to say like maybe my daughter was like 8 and my son was like 10. It could have even been a little bit younger than that. But I used to do all of the laundry in my house, and I'm sure many of you do as well. All of the towels, all of the dishcloths, all of the kids' clothes, the husband's clothes, the socks, the folding of the socks, the sheets, right? All the things. And one day I just kind of like snapped. I just decided, and it wasn't dramatic. I didn't start yelling or screaming or that kind of snap, but it was just this internal decision that I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. I hung up my towel, literally. And what I decided was that I will do my laundry and I will do the towels and the dishcloths and the sheets and all that, but I am not doing anyone else's laundry in this house. So from that point on, I taught my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old how to do their laundry, how to put it away when they were done. And I told my husband he could do his own laundry too. And it was miraculous. I can't tell you how much time I used to spend on laundry, washing it, separating it, you know, taking it out, folding it, putting it in people's drawers. It was so much to hold for one person with that many family members, right? And I only have 2 kids. There's many of you that have more than 2 kids. It's a lot. And it was so amazing when I let that go. And what I found very quickly was that they were all highly capable of doing that themselves. And it taught them a very important thing about what it means to be in a household and to participate and engage and do your part. And my kids really, really know how to do their laundry now. My son is heading off to college next year, and I don't have to teach him how to do his laundry because he does that every single week. Granted, it's not a beautiful task that he does, right? Like he will literally pick up every single thing off of his floor that he's thrown there all week and put it in his hamper and put the entire thing in the wash. Most of it probably hasn't even been worn, so he's washing things multiple times that probably don't need it, and then it's probably all just going right back on his floor. So it's not amazing, but I'm not doing it, and that's great for me. So it works out all right, and I'm okay with his room being like that because it's not down in our space, and I have him clean it once a month, and it's all good, right? It's just not something that I worry about or I stress about. It's something I took off my plate. That's another easy thing that we can just take off our plate, right? Just worrying about some of these little things like, "Oh my gosh, my kid's room is such a mess." Like, okay, close the door. Like there's some things that we might, hold really important and it's different for each of us what really matters. But I've decided, the things that really matter for me in my house. And that's one of the things I can just let off of my mental load, off my mental plate. Because there's plenty of other things to hold. So many things to hold, right? I don't need to hold that one. And that's just my way of handling it and my way of, releasing some of that stress or overwhelm. So, what I want you to really know is this: you are not weak for feeling tired. You are human in a culture that expects parents, especially moms, to be everything for everyone. And part of courage and trust is being willing to say, I can't carry all of this anymore, nor do I want to. And I'm going to put some of these things down. And I trust that my worth isn't measured by how much I strain. I also trust that as I stop holding so tightly, I teach my kids and my partner how to participate and engage in responsibilities by giving care to their spaces, to themselves, and to those around them, which the world will thank you for later, right? They're going to be so thankful, the partners of our children are going to be so thankful that we passed off some responsibilities to them and taught them how to do it, right? Because now they get to do that in their own homes and they get to be a participant, right? And not just the one that's sitting on the couch throwing their socks around and not picking up after themselves or whatever it might be, right? So we're actually teaching them something really valuable while taking things off of our plate and releasing some of our mental load. It's a win-win, really. All right. So the third thing I want to talk to you about today is really prioritizing courage over comfort. So once we start really tuning in to our quiet internal voice and we begin questioning the beliefs under the load that we've been carrying, the next invitation is to really start to choose courage over comfort. And I love how Brene talks about this in her book, Dare to Lead. She says, integrity is choosing courage over comfort, choosing to do what's right instead of what's fun, fast, or easy. It's choosing to practice our values rather than simply professing them. So the type of courage I'm talking about here is the courage to ask ourselves these questions, to look inward, and to start really listening to ourselves instead of making our choices and decisions about what everyone around us or even society or the world expects of us. It's about forging our own course, even though it's scary and way out of our comfort zones. So courage might look like saying, we're doing a simpler holiday this year, even if the family doesn't fully get it. It might be telling your team the truth about how you feel instead of pretending that you're fine. It might be asking for support from a friend or from a therapist or a coach or a community. It might be starting the creative project or filling out the application or starting the idea you've been talking yourself out of. It might be letting yourself believe even a little bit that more is possible for you. Comfort is familiar. Comfort is predictable. Comfort says, stay where you are even if you're drained. Don't risk being misunderstood. Don't rock the boat. Who do you think you are to want that? Right? All those old stories, right? Courage, on the other hand, says, I can feel scared and still take one small step. I can let someone else have feelings about my choices. I'm willing to be a beginner at this. I'm allowed to build a life that fits me. Courage over comfort is not about forcing yourself into situations that feel unsafe or overwhelming. It's just about recognizing the difference between true danger and discomfort and choosing growth over stagnation when you know your inner voice is nudging you forward. If we bring this back to the whole scope of this series, focus shows you what's beautiful and meaningful, and then beliefs expand what you think is possible, and then courage is you saying, okay, I'm going to actually live like that's true, even in small ways. And one important thing to remember is that you don't have to become fearless to become courageous. You just have to believe that what's on the other side of that small, scary step is more alignment, more joy, more honesty, more rest. And it's worth feeling a little uncomfortable for. All right, the last piece I want to talk to you about today is taking aligned action and what it looks like to partner with life and with the universe or with God, with your own inner wisdom, instead of feeling like you have to muscle through everything alone. Aligned action is really different from frantic, fear-driven action. Frantic action feels like if I don't do this perfectly, everything's going to fall apart, or I have to force this to happen right now, or I'm hustling just to prove my worthiness. Aligned action feels more like this step feels really honest and right, even if it's scary. And I don't know the whole plan, but I know this is my next step, and I'm willing to do my part and trust that I'm supported. So you can think of it like a partnership. Your role is just to listen and to show up and to take the next right step that you have access to. And then life's role, or the universe's role, is to meet you in that effort with the right person at the right time, with that unexpected support, with opportunities you couldn't have predicted. We talked about how, where we place our focus is going to limit our perception of reality, right? And so if I'm focusing on my limitations and, the barriers that are in my way, I will not see doorways. I will not see opportunities. But when I shift my focus towards possibilities and hope and faith, all of that starts to shift, and opportunities that I couldn't have even predicted start to make themselves known to me. And so you don't have to white knuckle your way into a new year. You also don't have to sit back and hope something magical happens without your participation. Aligned action is the middle path. So as we head toward 2026, I want you to really think about questions like, what's one area of my life where my inner voice has been nudging me? What's one small concrete step I can take in that direction? Or how can I show my faith in myself, in the future, in something bigger through my own actions this week? And this could be simple things like sending an email you've been putting off, or booking a consultation, or blocking off time for rest or creativity on your calendar. It could be beginning a savings plan or a trip plan. It could be signing up for a class or support that scares you, but in a good way. It could be starting a training program or a college degree path or a certification or putting in a job application to start moving towards something that you've always wanted to do. And one thing that I would invite you to do is to pair this with a tiny Christmas Eve ritual or a moment sometime this week. So it could be as simple as lighting a candle and putting your hand on your heart and asking, what is my inner voice asking me to do right now? And what is one aligned action I'm being invited to take as I step into 2026? So you don't need a 20-step plan. You just need the next step and the willingness to trust that more will reveal itself as you move. All right, so as with the other episodes, I'm going to leave you with some journal prompts. I also asked you some reflection questions throughout this episode, so you're welcome to reflect on those as well. But I'll pop these ones into the show notes so you can revisit them later. And number one is, where have I been hearing a quiet inner nudge lately about rest, change, creativity, boundaries, or next steps? And what has that voice been trying to tell me? Number two, what mental, emotional, or logistical loads am I carrying right now that feel especially heavy? and what beliefs sit underneath those loads. For example, if I don't hold it all, everything will fall apart. Number 3, where in my life am I choosing comfort over growth, even though a part of me knows I'm meant for something more? What is one small, courageous step I'm willing to take this week, even if I still feel nervous? And number 4, if I trusted that I was supported by life, by the universe, by something bigger, and by my own future self, what is one aligned action I would take as I move into 2026? And what would it look like to say yes to that? All right, so today in week 3 of the Up-Level Reset, we focused on courage and trust, the piece that connects your inner world to the way you actually live your life. We talked about the difference between all the noise of stress, obligation, and expectation, and the quiet inner voice of your intuition, and how shifting your focus and beliefs makes it easier to hear that inner guidance. We talked about the reality of the mental, emotional, and logistical load and the beliefs underneath it that keep you carrying more than you were ever meant to hold. And then we moved into choosing courage over comfort in small, everyday ways that actually change your life, not by being fearless, but by valuing growth and truth more than staying stuck. And finally, we talked about taking aligned action, what it means to partner with the universe, with life, with your own inner wisdom, by taking one honest step at a time and trusting that you don't have to do everything alone. If this episode helped you listen a little more closely and hear a little more clearly, or gave you permission to put something down, or nudged you toward one brave step, I really want to invite you to honor that. Write it down, name it out loud, tell a friend. Drop me a DM and tell me about it. Make it real. Because next Wednesday on New Year's Eve, we're going to close out this mini-series with week 4, your identity reset for 2026. We're going to talk about the stories, identities, and habits from 2025 that you're ready to release, what you want to call in and embody in 2026, and why traditional New Year's resolutions usually don't work and how you can do it differently this time. So remember, you are not meant to carry everything alone. You're not behind. You're right on time to make your next best choice. All right, my friends, thank you so much for spending part of your Christmas Eve week with me. I'm cheering you on so much as you lean into courage and trust, and I cannot wait to be back with you next week for our final episode of the Up-Level Reset. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day and a beautiful Christmas or whatever holiday you and your family celebrate, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone. Did you enjoy the show? If so, would you take 30 seconds to subscribe so you don't miss an episode? Leave a quick review so more parents can find these conversations, and maybe even share this episode to your stories. And if you want to connect, please send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at jasmine.guidedpassages, and that's Jasmine with a Y. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll talk to you next week.